I stared at my phone screen, at the selfie of Maya and me, our heads pressed together. She had a brilliant smile. I had a smile that looked like it was held in place with duct tape. The caption read, "Year 10, and it's still you." Our mutual friends went ballistic. The comments were a unanimous chorus of, "I knew there was something going on with you too." And at that very moment, my brand new girlfriend was sitting across from me, reviewing every word of our ridiculous relationship partnership agreement. She tapped the paper. In the presence of both parties' parents and at necessary social functions, a moderate level of physical contact must be maintained. This includes, but is not limited to, holding hands, linking arms, cuddling. I stared down, stirring my long cold iced coffee. During the term of the agreement, neither party shall develop any relations with a member of the opposite sex that extend beyond the bounds of friendship. The ice cubes had completely melted. Finally, she looked up at last, her eyes startlingly bright. The contract term is 3 months effective today. At the end of the term, the relationship is automatically dissolved. No explanation necessary. A clean break. She slid a pen across the table. And whoever breaks the deal, she added with a grin, is a total chicken. I signed my name, Caleb Mitchell. It felt like I was signing my life away. This whole mess started 2 weeks ago. My mom brought up Mrs. Peterson's daughter from next door for the 10th time. Maya's mom set her up on a blind date for the 8th time. We were in the same coffee shop, sitting back to back in different booths, each of us dealing with a nagging on our respective phone calls. I hung up, and when I turned around, I saw her sitting there, staring blankly at a latte whose foam art had long since dissolved into a sad little cloud. "Fancy seeing you here," I said, walking over. She looked up and forced a smile. My mom said this one was an investment banker, 6'1", and looked like Ryan Reynolds in his profile picture. And he was 5'9" on a good day, and looked more like, well, not Ryan Reynolds. I couldn't help it. I laughed. She shot me a glare. "What about you? How's Mrs. Peterson's daughter this time?" "A PhD candidate. She studies the mating rituals of insects." We both sighed in perfect unison. "You know," she said, suddenly leaning closer, "what if we just gave it a shot, together?" I nearly choked on my own spit. "Look," she started counting on her fingers, "we know everything about each other, so we save all that getting to know you trouble. There are no romantic feelings, so no messy breakup when it's over. Both our families would be thrilled. Our social lives would stabilize." "Hold on," I cut in. "This sounds less like a relationship and more like a business merger." "It's basically the same thing," she said, dead serious. "We form a limited liability partnership called The Couple to deal with familial and social pressure, maximizing our short-term gains." I was speechless. "Just think of it as doing each other a favor," she pleaded, clasping her hands together, her eyes wide and earnest. "The 10-year high school reunion is in 3 months, and everyone's betting I'll show up alone." She dropped her gaze, her long eyelashes casting tiny shadows on her cheeks. "I've known Maya Rodriguez for 20 years, from making mud pies and diapers, to the time in middle school when she accidentally gave the love letter I wrote to another girl to our homeroom teacher, to that night in college she sobbed on a curb like an abandoned puppy after a bad breakup. I knew that at least half of this pathetic act was just that, an act. But I still nodded. "Fine." Her face immediately lit up. She pulled a freshly printed document out of her purse. "You had this ready to go?" I asked, stunned. "Let's be professional," she said, pushing the papers toward me. "A verbal agreement isn't worth the paper it's not written on." 10 minutes after the Instagram post went live, my phone started vibrating and didn't stop. The comments from our mutual friends piled up. "I knew you two were shady. The way you were making eyes at each other at dinner last month. You kept that on the down low. Caleb, congrats. I always said you two would end up together." Maya sat there, reading them out loud to me one by one, laughing so hard she was practically falling out her chair. "Look at this one," she said, leaning in and shoving her phone in my face. "It says, 'Anyone who bet 10 years ago that they'd get together, I owe you a boba tea.' There are like a dozen replies listing their boba orders." She was so close that her hair brushed against my chin. It tickled. There was a faint scent of gardenia. I couldn't tell if it was from her shampoo or a perfume. "Not bad, Caleb. Your acting skills are pretty convincing," she said, looking up at me, her eyes crinkling at the corners. When we took that picture, the way you were looking at me. For a second there, I almost believed it. Right back at you, I said, looking away. The way you snuggled up against me was very natural. Should we practice? She asked suddenly. Practice what? Holding hands, she said, extending her hand as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. We have to get used to it. What if we mess it up in front of our parents? I looked at the hand offered to me. I took it. It was a little cool and soft. She flipped her hand over and laced her fingers through mine, adjusting our grip. Nope, that's not right. The way you're holding it is awkward. It should be like this, fingers intertwined. Got it. Her slender fingers slid between mine, fitting perfectly. Why are your palms so sweaty? She asked, looking up with a raised eyebrow. It's hot in here, I said, my face a perfect mask of indifference. Oh, she drew the word out, then pointed to her own ear with her other hand. Then why are your ears red? Also because it's hot. The high school reunion was on a Saturday night. Before we left, Maya came over to my apartment to personally supervise my wardrobe selection. Nope, too stuffy. This one's also a no. You look like you're going to job interview. Caleb, is your entire closet just flannel shirts and hoodies? After rummaging through my pathetic collection of clothes, she sighed in despair. Forget it. You're wearing one of mine. She ran back to her place and returned 5 minutes later holding a dark blue button-down shirt. I bought this a while ago, but it was too big. It's a relaxed fit, so it should work for you. I took the shirt. The material was soft, and it carried the same gardenia scent she always wore. Well, go on, change, she said, giving me a push. We're going to be late. I put the shirt on. It was a little snug, but it fit. She came up behind me and started fixing the collar, her fingers occasionally brushing against the back of my neck. Not bad, she said, walking around to face me. She studied me for a moment, then reached out and undid the top 2 buttons. Show a little collarbone. It makes you look less like a robot. Her fingertips grazed my throat. I swallowed hard. Perfect, she said, patting my chest with satisfaction. Let's go, boyfriend. The private room at the restaurant was already packed with people. The moment we walked in, holding hands, the room went quiet for a beat. Then it erupted in a roar of cheers and catcalls. No way, is this for real? You two actually got together. When did this happen? You guys kept this quiet. Maya clung to my arm, her body pressed against mine, a blissfully happy smile plastered on her face. Not too long ago, just last month. Way to go. Caleb, said the guy who used to be our class jock, Brad, I think. He walked over with a glass in his hand, managed to land the prom queen without anyone noticing. He was talking to me, but his eyes kept darting over to Maya. It was just fate, I guess, I said with a smile, wrapping my arm around Maya's waist and pulling her a little closer. Her body stiffened for a second before she relaxed, leaning her head against my shoulder in a perfect imitation of affection. So, Maya, spill. How did Caleb win you over? One of the girls called out. Maya blinked, then launched into a completely fabricated story. Oh, he started bringing me breakfast every morning, picking me up from work when it rained, bringing me medicine in the middle of the night when I was sick. I looked down at her. She was spinning this tale with the confidence of a seasoned liar, her eyes sparkling, her cheeks flushed with excitement, or something else. How had I never noticed what a good actress she was? Damn, Caleb, Brad said, sidling up again and pouring Maya a drink. Maya, a toast to you. Congrats on being off the market. Just as his hand was about to land on her shoulder, I intercepted it. She's a lightweight, I said, taking the glass from Maya's hand and giving Brad a polite smile. I'll drink this for her. As I drained the glass, I saw Maya looking at me. Her expression was complicated. Wow, Maya, he's got you on a tight leash, someone joked. Maya snapped back to reality, her sweet smile returning as she hugged my arm. He does. He's so overprotective. She looked up at me, wrinkling her nose. He won't even let me have a single drink. Her voice was soft and syrupy, a perfect imitation of a doting girlfriend. I played along, gently pinching her cheek. And who was it that got wasted after one drink and ended up hugging a lamppost while singing Don't Stop Believin'? Whoa, that happened. Maya, you have a secret past. The table erupted in laughter, the atmosphere lively again. Under the table, Maya gave my thigh a vicious pinch. I didn't even flinch. I just reached down and captured her hand, holding it firmly in mine. She tried to pull away, failed, and then just left it there. Her fingers traced a small circle in my palm, like a kitten's paw. By the time the reunion ended, it was almost 11. Brad was wasted and insisted on walking Maya home. I'm not drunk, he slurred, stumbling toward her. Maya, I'll walk you. I stepped in front of him, blocking his path to Maya. That won't be necessary, I said, maintaining my smile. She's my girlfriend. I'll take her home. What's that supposed to mean? He sputtered, glaring at me. You think I'm trying to make a move on her? Are you? My smile faded slightly. Caleb, you son of... He raised a hand to shove me, but I stood my ground. Maya peeked out from behind me. Brad, you're drunk. You should go home. Maya, we're leaving. Maya cut him off, taking my arm. Goodbye. She pulled me away, walking briskly without a backward glance. Even from a distance, we could still hear Brad yelling behind us. Not bad. Caleb, Maya said once we were back at our apartment complex. She let go of my arm, crossed her own, and looked me up and down. You were pretty impressive back there. The contract, I reminded her, neither party shall develop any relations that extend beyond the bounds of friendship. Oh, him? He doesn't count, she said with a wave of her hand. He's just a fly, buzzing around. A cool night breeze swept by. She was only wearing a dress, and goosebumps prickled her arms. Cold? I asked. A little. I took off my jacket and handed it to her. Wow, such a gentleman, she said with a smirk, but she took it and draped it over her shoulders. The jacket was huge on her, hanging loosely. We walked toward the building side by side. Thanks, by the way, she said suddenly, for drinking for me, and for getting rid of that fly. All part of the job. True, she nodded. You're getting paid, after all. Gotta earn your keep. You're not paying me. For emotional damages, she said matter-of-factly. Pretending to be my boyfriend must be so tough on you. I'll survive, I said, pressing the elevator button. My acting skills have improved. The elevator doors reflected our images. She was wrapped in my jacket, her hair a little messy, her cheeks still faintly flushed. We were standing very close. Hey, by the way, she said, as if just remembering, did you really just say I hugged a lamppost and sang Don't Stop Believin'? You heard wrong. I'm pretty sure that's what I heard. Auditory hallucination. Caleb. The elevator doors opened. We walked out, one after the other, and stopped at our respective apartment doors. She handed my jacket back. Thanks for the jacket. Yeah. She took out her keys to open her door, then suddenly turned back. Oh, right. My mom wants us to come over for dinner tomorrow. Be ready. Got it. She closed her door. I stood there for a moment before unlocking my own. The next day, dinner at Maya's parents' house was intense. They were so enthusiastic that I had trouble keeping up. Caleb, have some more. Maya learned how to make these barbecue ribs just for you. This girl, we spoiled her rotten growing up. You'll have to be patient with her. So, when are you two thinking of getting married? Have you started looking at houses? Maya kicked me under the table. I put down my fork, my expression sincere. Mr. and Mrs. Rodriguez, Maya, and I just got together. We want to spend some more time getting to know each other as a couple. Marriage is a big step, and we don't want to rush it. Maya quickly jumped in. Exactly. Stop pressuring us. We have our own timeline. Her mom shot her a look. All you do is procrastinate. A great guy like Caleb doesn't stay on the market forever. If you don't lock him down, someone else will. Maya put a rib on my plate and gave me a saccharine sweet smile. He wouldn't let that happen. Right. After dinner, Maya's mom pulled her into the kitchen for a private chat. I stayed in the living room and played chess with her dad. Maya seems carefree, but she's actually very sensitive, her dad said, slowly moving a pawn. She tended to keep things bottled up. I stared at the board. Back in middle school, she was obsessed with our neighbor's husky. Fed it treats every day. When they moved and took the dog, she cried for days, but she never shed a single tear in front of us. Is that so? And at her high school graduation party, she got drunk. It was you who brought her home, wasn't it? I looked up. Her dad smiled. That kid who was with her tried to get a little too handsy, and you knocked him flat. Remember? I looked back down at the board. I don't really remember. You've always been protective of her, her dad said, his tone full of meaning. That's a good thing. I lost that game of chess spectacularly. On the way home, Maya was unusually quiet. Your dad told me some stories about when you were a kid, I said, breaking the silence. Did he tell you embarrassing stuff about me again? She asked, instantly on edge. Not much. She breathed a sigh of relief. Just about how you cried over a husky in middle school, and how some guy got handsy at your graduation party. Stop, she cried, covering her ears. That's so embarrassing. I smiled. Caleb, she said, suddenly dropping her hands, her expression serious. Those are my dark secrets. You must forget them immediately. I'll try. Not try to. Okay. When we got to the entrance of our building, she suddenly said, Thanks for today. For what? For playing along in front of my parents. It's in the contract. She was quiet for a moment. Right? The contract. The streetlights stretched our shadows long behind us. She was kicking at a loose pebble on the sidewalk. Don't you think? This act is getting a little too real. What do you mean? My parents totally bought it, she said, looking up, her eyes shining in the lamplight. Even your mom texted me today, saying how happy she was that we were together. And she took a deep breath. How are we going to explain this to them in 3 months? I didn't say anything. Whatever, I'll worry about it later, she said, waving her hand dismissively, reverting to her usual carefree attitude. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it. We'll just say we had irreconcilable differences and broke up. She turned to walk into the building. Maya, I called out. She turned back. What? What if? I hesitated. Never mind. She tilted her head, studying me for a second, then smiled. You know, Caleb, you've been acting kind of weird lately. Weird how? I can't put my finger on it, she said, stepping into the elevator. You're just easier on the eyes than you used to be. The elevator doors slid shut. I stood alone in the empty lobby, feeling a faint flutter somewhere deep in my chest. By the second month of the contract, Caleb and Maya's romance was running like a well-oiled machine. They had dinner together at least 3 times a week, a dedicated day on the weekend, and a steady exchange of good morning and good night texts. She would order me takeout when I worked late. I would make her ginger tea when she had cramps. It was so seamless, so natural. You'd think we'd been together for years. Then, her college friend got married. I was asked to be a groomsman, and she a bridesmaid. The night before the wedding, we were staying in rooms on the same floor of the hotel. Around midnight, there was a knock on my door. I opened it to find Maya standing there, clutching a pillow, dressed in a silk nightgown with her hair all messy. So, she said, her eyes darting around, you asleep yet? Not yet, I said, stepping aside. What's up? She slipped past me into the room and closed the door behind her. I just watched a horror movie, she whispered, and now I'm too scared to sleep alone. I raised an eyebrow. And so, she said, tossing her pillow onto my bed and climbing in herself, I'm borrowing half your bed for the night. I just stood there. Relax, she said, burrowing under the covers until only her eyes were visible. I know the terms of the contract. Strictly platonic sleeping. I turned off the main lights, leaving only a small lamp on by the bed, and lay down on the far edge. I kept as much distance as I could. The bed was huge. You could have fit another person between us. Caleb. Her voice was a soft murmur in the darkness. Yeah. You asleep? No. Oh. A moment of silence passed. Caleb. What now? Are you nervous about being a groomsman tomorrow? No. I am. A little. I heard the bride throws the bouquet really hard. My friend got a bloody nose from it once. Go to sleep. Oh. She was quiet for a few more minutes. Just as I thought she'd finally drifted off, she suddenly rolled over, throwing a leg over mine and wrapping an arm around my waist. So warm. She mumbled, burying her face in the crook of my neck. Her breath was a light, ticklish sensation on my skin. My entire body went rigid. Maya, I whispered. No response, just the sound of even breathing. She was really asleep. I tried to shift away, but she just held on tighter, her leg unconsciously rubbing against my hip. The silk of her nightgown was smooth and thin, and I could feel the warmth of her body through it. I lay on my back, staring at the ceiling. My heartbeat was thunderously loud in my ears. Her hair tickled my chin. The scent of gardenia shampoo. I thought back to that high school graduation party. She really had been wasted, barely able to stand. Her lab partner, the nerdy kid with the glasses, was helping her, but his hands were wandering. I punched the kid, scraping my elbow raw in the process. On the walk home, she leaned against my back, mumbling the entire way. I can't remember most of what she said. Just the last thing. Caleb, you idiot. The next morning, I showed up at breakfast with dark circles under my eyes. Maya was bright-eyed and refreshed, already in her bridesmaid dress with her makeup perfectly done. Morning, she chirped, greeting me with a huge smile. Sleep well. I just stared at her. She blinked, then leaned in closer, lowering her voice. You look like you didn't sleep a wink. Thanks to you. Oh, don't be like that, she said, patting my shoulder. Next time you're scared after a horror movie, I'll sleep with you too. No, thanks. The ceremony dragged on. I stood next to the groom, but my eyes kept drifting over to Maya in the line of bridesmaids. She was wearing a lavender dress, her hair pinned up, revealing the elegant curve of her neck. Every so often, she'd glance back and give me a little smile. When it was time for the bouquet toss, she was right at the front, bouncing on her toes in anticipation. The bride turned her back, wound up, and launched the bouquet into the air. It sailed in a perfect arc, heading straight for Maya. She reached for it. So did several other girls. In the chaos, the bouquet was knocked off course, sent flying in my direction. On pure reflex, I reached out and caught it. The entire room went silent for a second, then erupted into applause and laughter. The officiant came over with a microphone. Well, it looks like our groomsman here is even more eager to get married than the bride. Everyone was laughing. Maya stood in the crowd, watching me, her eyes shining. The officiant handed me the mic. So, our lucky groomsman, any thoughts on catching the bouquet? Anyone you'd like to say something to? I held the bundle of white roses, my gaze sweeping over the crowd. It landed on Maya. Nothing to say, I said, handing the mic back. Just thought it looked nice. Another wave of laughter. After the ceremony came the photos. After the bride and groom were done, the bridesmaids and groomsmen gathered for group shots. Groomsmen get a little closer to the bridesmaids. That's it, big smiles. The photographer directed. Maya stood next to me, naturally linking her arm through mine. Caleb, she whispered, your ears are red again. It's hot. Oh, she drew out the word, her finger tracing a line on my arm. Then why is your heart beating so fast? I can literally feel it. I looked down at her. She was grinning like the cat that ate the canary. After the photos, she dragged me over to the dessert table. This one is amazing, she said, holding a spoonful of cake up to my lips. Try it. I opened my mouth and ate it. Sweet, she asked. Yeah. I know, right? She said, taking a spoonful for herself. Way better than that bakery we went to last time. The word sounded so natural coming from her. So natural it made my head spin for a second. Later that night, the reception got rowdy. Someone suggested a game of truth or dare. The bottle spun and landed on me. Pick your poison, Caleb. Truth or dare? Dare. All right, the guy who suggested it said with a sly grin. Find someone of the opposite sex in this room and have a deep, meaningful stare down for 30 seconds. Amid the catcalls and cheers, all eyes landed on me and Maya. She was sitting across from me, her cheeks flushed, either from the wine or from embarrassment. Come on, Maya, don't be shy, someone urged, giving her a little push. She stood up and walked over to me. Close your eyes, I said softly. What? Just do it. She closed them, looking confused. I reached out and gently covered her ears with my hands. Then I looked up at the cheering crowd. Pick another one. What? She's not feeling well today, I said, my face perfectly straight. It's too loud. It's giving her a headache. The truth was, I could tell she hated games like this. She'd been rubbing her temples for the last 10 minutes. Maya opened her eyes and looked at me. Her expression was complicated. Caleb, you're no fun. Talk about a protective boyfriend. In the end, they gave me an easier dare. Chug 3 glasses of wine. I drank them and sat back down. Maya leaned over. How did you know I wasn't feeling well? A guess. Liar, she scoffed. You were staring at me the whole time. Yeah. Why were you staring at me? The contract. Monitoring my partner's condition is a fundamental obligation. She stared at me for a long moment, then broke into a smile. Caleb, you're a really good guy. Please don't say that. In the car on the way back, she fell asleep on my shoulder. Her breath was a soft, steady rhythm against my neck. just like last night. I looked down at her. She was sound asleep, her lips slightly parted, her long eyelashes casting shadows on her cheeks. The driver glanced at us in the rearview mirror and smiled. "You have a beautiful girlfriend." I just grunted in response. "You two seem really happy together." I didn't answer. Happy together. It was all fake. But then why, when she had her eyes closed and I covered her ears, did my heart beat so fast? Why, when I saw she was uncomfortable, did my first instinct was to protect her? Why? Was this starting to feel less and less like an act? The car stopped at the entrance to our apartment complex, and Maya woke up. She rubbed her eyes, mumbling, "Are we here?" "Yeah." We got out and started walking. It was late, and the street was deserted. She yawned and, without thinking, took my hand. "Caleb," she said, her voice still thick with sleep. "Thanks for today." "For what?" "The bouquet. And for earlier." "Don't mention it." She stopped at the entrance to our building. "Actually," she said, looking down at her shoes, "I really wasn't feeling well earlier today." "I know. How do you know everything?" she said, looking up, her eyes glistening under the moonlight. "It's like you know me better than I know myself." I didn't respond. "Sometimes I wonder," she took a step forward, closing the distance between us, "if we were really—" She didn't finish. The motion-activated light in the lobby suddenly went out, plunging us into darkness. I could feel her breath, warm and close. The light flickered back on. She took a step back and laughed. "Never mind. I'm exhausted. Let's go up." She swiped her key fob and went inside. I followed her. In the elevator, we both stared at the changing floor numbers in silence. When we got her door, she took out her key but didn't unlock it right away. "Caleb." "Yeah. We're almost at 3 months. 3 weeks left." "Oh," she said, fiddling with her keys. "You've been keeping track." "Right. The contract." She opened her door, but didn't go in. "What if—" she started, her back to me, her voice barely a whisper. What if, after the contract is over?" My heart skipped a beat. "It's nothing," she said, turning around with a small smile. "Good night." The door closed softly. I stood in the hallway for a long time, until the light went out again. What if, after the contract is over, what would we be? I didn't dare let myself finish the thought. Maya started acting strange. She stopped texting me every day. When I asked her to dinner, she said she was busy. When we did see each other, she seemed distant, lost in thought. "Are you busy with work lately?" I finally asked. "Oh, it's fine," she said, stirring her coffee without looking at me. "Just some stuff going on at the office." "Oh." Silence. "Caleb," she said, suddenly looking up, "how do you think we did with this whole act?" "It was okay. Just okay. It was good." "Oh." She looked back down at her coffee. "What's wrong?" I asked. "Nothing," she said, forcing a smile. "Just thinking. Time flies, doesn't it?" A week before the contract was set to expire, my mom was rushed to the hospital. Acute appendicitis. She needed a minor surgery. I called Maya, and she was at the hospital in minutes. "How's your mom?" she asked. Out of breath, her forehead beaded with sweat. "She's in pre-op. It's nothing serious." She let out a sigh of relief. "That's good." The surgery went well. When they wheeled my mom back to her room, she was still groggy from the anesthesia, clutching Maya's hand and refusing to let go. "Maya, dear," she mumbled. "Caleb, that boy, he's so stubborn. You'll have to be patient with him." Maya's eyes were red as she nodded. "I know, Mrs. Mitchell. You just rest." Once my mom was asleep, we stepped out of the room. "Thanks for coming," I said. "Don't be silly," she frowned. "Your mom is sick." Of course I was going to come. The harsh fluorescent lights of the hallway made her face look pale. "You look exhausted," I said. "You should go home. I can stay here with her." "I'll stay with you for a bit." We sat down on a bench in the hallway. The hospital was quiet in the dead of night. All I could hear was the sound of her breathing. "Caleb," she said suddenly, "do you remember when we were kids?" "Yeah. One time, I had a high fever, and you skipped school to come see me. You got attention for a week." "I remember. In high school, I failed a math test and hid on the bleachers crying. You sat with me all night." "Yeah. In college, when I had my heart broken." She stopped, not finishing the sentence. "Why are you bringing all this up?" I asked. "I was just thinking," she said with a faint smile. "We've been through a lot together, haven't we?" "We had. A lot. So much that I'd gotten used to her being a constant in my life. So much that I couldn't tell where the acting stopped and the real feelings began. Caleb, she said, leaning her head on my shoulder, her voice soft. If we ever went our separate ways, would you miss me? My heart clenched. We're not going our separate ways, I said. She lifted her head and looked at me. The contract is up in a week. I know. After that, Maya. I cut her off. Yeah. I looked into her eyes, the same eyes I'd been looking into for 20 years. For the first time, they felt so close. So close I could see my own reflection in them. My words were cut off by the buzz of the intercom at the nurse's station. Family for room 302. I stood up. I'll go see what they need. She nodded, not saying a word. When I came back, she was gone. There was a note left on the bench. Take care of your mom, and take care of yourself. I'll come by tomorrow. The handwriting was a little shaky. In the bottom right corner, there was a faint, blurry smudge like a single drop of water had fallen there. Maya came to the hospital every day while my mom was recovering. She brought homemade soup, chatted with my mom, and helped me take care of everything. The other patients in a room were green with envy, telling me over and over again what a wonderful girlfriend I had. My mom held her hand, beaming. Maya, dear, as soon as I'm out of here, I'm making you my special barbecue ribs. Thank you, Mrs. Mitchell. Don't thank me. We're family. Maya's smile faltered for just a second. When I stepped out to get some water, she followed me. Caleb, she said, stopping me. Your mom. She seems to really like me. Yeah. If she knew that we were. Maya. I interrupted. Yeah. I looked into her eyes, but the words I wanted to say got stuck in my throat. Nothing, I said, looking away. Thanks for all your help these past few days. She was quiet for a moment. You've been saying thank you a lot lately, Caleb. It's the right thing to do. Is that in the contract too? No. She stared at me for a few seconds, then suddenly smiled. We should get back. Your mom is probably waiting. 3 days before the contract was set to expire, my mom was discharged. She insisted on having Maya over for a thank you dinner. You have to come, my mom said over the phone. I promised you barbecue ribs. Maya glanced at me, then nodded. Okay, I'll be there. The dinner was lively. My mom kept piling food on Maya's plate, and my dad, who was usually quiet, was animatedly talking to her about her job. So, Maya, my mom said halfway through the meal, have you two set a date yet? Maya's chopsticks froze midair. I put my bowl down. Mom, we talked about this. No pressure. I'm just asking, my mom said, glaring at me. A girl as wonderful as Maya. If you don't hurry up and put a ring on it, someone else will. Maya was looking down at her plate, silent. Mrs. Mitchell, she said, suddenly looking up with a smile. We have our own timeline. What timeline? Tell me about it. Well, she glanced at me, her expression unreadable. We just want to spend some more time together, get to know each other better. You've known each other for 20 years. How much better do you need to know him? My mom asked, bewildered. Mom, I said firmly, let's just eat. The food's getting cold. After dinner, Maya helped my mom with the dishes. I sat in the living room, listening to their conversation from the kitchen. Maya, honey, if Caleb ever gives you any trouble, you tell me. I'll set him straight for you. He doesn't, Mrs. Mitchell. He's very good to me. That's good. That boy. He's never been good at expressing himself. He keeps everything locked up inside. But he really does care about you. He always has. I know. I got up and walked out onto the balcony. The cool night air felt good. My thoughts were a tangled mess. I heard footsteps behind me. What are you doing out here? Maya asked. Getting some air. She stood next to me, looking down at the streetlights below. Time flies, she said softly. Remember when we were kids? We used to play hide and seek in that little park down there. Yeah. You could never find me. You were a good hider. No, you just didn't look hard enough, she said with a small smile. I was always hiding in plain sight. I turned to look at her. She was looking at me, too. Our eyes met for a second before we both looked away. Caleb, she said, her voice quiet. The contract. It's over the day after tomorrow. I know. After that, she didn't finish. But I knew. After that, we wouldn't be a couple anymore. No more good morning texts. No more weekend dates. No more pretending to care who the other person was with. We would go back to being just friends. Or maybe not even that. Maya, I started. I. Her phone rang. She glanced at the screen. I have to take this. She walked to the other side of the balcony to take the call. I could hear her low, murmuring voice, and then a soft laugh. It was a man's voice on the other end. A surge of irrational annoyance washed over me. She hung up and walked back over. That was work. Something came up. I have to go. Okay. She looked at me as if she wanted to say something more. But in the end, she just smiled. I'll see you later. I'll walk you out. Don't worry about it. Stay with your mom. She turned and left. I watched her back disappear as the elevator doors closed. I felt like a part of me had just been carved out. The day before the contract expired, I didn't contact Maya all day, and she didn't contact me. That night, I sat on the couch, staring at the now-worn copy of the relationship partnership agreement. 3 months. 90 days. It felt like it had gone by in the blink of an eye. I remember the proud look on her face when she first brought me the contract. I remembered her ears turning red when we were practicing holding hands. I remembered her leaning against my shoulder at the reunion, pretending to be in love. I remembered her standing at my door, clutching a pillow, saying she was scared. I remembered her shining eyes at the wedding. I remembered her leaning on my shoulder in the hospital hallway, asking, "Would you miss me?" I remembered her on the balcony, saying, "I was always hiding in plain sight." Every memory was crystal clear, so clear that I couldn't lie to myself anymore. This wasn't an act, at least not for me. I heard a key in the lock. It was probably my mom, back from her walk. The door opened, but it wasn't my mom. It was Maya. She was wearing a simple t-shirt and jeans, her hair in a ponytail, no makeup on. She was holding a grocery bag. "What are you doing here?" I asked, standing up. "I came to have dinner with you," she said, holding up the bag. "I bought stuff for Hot Pot." "My mom's not home." "I know," she said, walking in and slipping off her shoes like she'd done it 1,000 times. She told me she was going to her line dancing class tonight. She went straight to the kitchen and started washing vegetables. I stood in the doorway, watching her. "Don't just stand there," she said, glancing over her shoulder. "Come help. Just like we always did, we prepared the hot pot together." She washed the vegetables, I sliced the meat. Our movements were so in sync, we didn't even need to speak. As the broth started to bubble, the apartment filled with steam. She placed a slice of beef in my bowl. "Eat up. You've gotten thinner lately." "Thanks." There you go with the thanks again. We ate in silence for a while. "Tomorrow," she said suddenly. "Yeah. The contract is over." "I know." She put down her chopsticks and looked at me. "Caleb, these past 3 months, were you tired of acting?" I looked back at her. "Were you?" Me, she smiled faintly. "I was fine. It was my idea, after all." "Oh, actually," she said, looking down at the dipping sauce in her bowl. "Sometimes I would forget that it was an act. My heart stopped, especially when you took that drink from me, and when you caught the bouquet at the wedding, and when you were at the hospital with me, taking care of your mom." Her voice grew quieter and quieter. "Maya," I said, putting down my chopsticks. Let me finish," she interrupted. "There's something I never told you." She took a deep breath. "That contract, I had it ready a long time ago. Not 2 weeks ago. 6 months ago." I stared at her, stunned. The reunion, my parents pressuring me, those were all just excuses. I just wanted to find a reason to get closer to you. She couldn't look at me, and her ears were bright red. "Why?" I asked. "Because." Her voice was barely a whisper. "I like you." The room was silent except for the bubbling of the hot pot. "Since when?" I asked. "I don't know," she said, shaking her head. "Maybe high school, maybe college." By the time I realized it, it was too late. She looked up, her eyes watery. "But I was afraid if I told you, we wouldn't even be able to be friends anymore. So I came up with this stupid plan. For the past 3 months, I've regretted it every single day. Why did I set a 3-month limit? I was terrified of what would happen when the contract ended." She looked at me, tears welling up in her eyes. "Caleb, I don't want it to end. I don't want to just be acting." I looked at her for a long, long time. Then I stood up and walked over to her. "Funny," I said. "Neither do I." She froze. "And one more thing," I said, pulling the contract from a drawer on the coffee table. I flipped to the last page and pointed to a tiny line of text at the very bottom. "The addendum. See it?" She leaned in and read it out loud. "Final interpretation of this agreement is reserved for Party A, Caleb Mitchell." "Yup." What does that mean? It means, I said, looking right at her, that I'm exercising my right of final interpretation. She blinked, confused. I leaned down and kissed her. It was a light, gentle kiss. Over in a second. She stared at me, her eyes wide with shock. The term of the contract, I said, is hereby amended to permanent. Her face flushed a deep crimson. When did you add that? The night I signed it. Why? Because, I said, looking into her eyes, I like you too, probably for a lot longer than you think. She stared at me for a few seconds, then broke into a smile, but the tears started falling. Caleb, she said, throwing her arms around me and burying her face in my chest. You idiot. I held her tight. We stayed like that for a long time. So, she said, her voice muffled by my shirt. What are we now? What do you think? I tilted her chin up and kissed her again. This time, it wasn't hesitant. Her lips were soft and tasted faintly of the spicy hot pot. I tangled my hand in her hair, deepening the kiss. She responded shyly, her arms wrapping around my neck. We didn't stop until we were both breathless. Girlfriend, I said, resting my forehead against hers. Future wife, mother of my children. Take your pick. Her blush deepened. Who said I was going to have your children? You are, I said, smiling and kissing her again. Who else would it be? When did you start liking me? She asked. I don't know, I said, thinking. Maybe when you were in diapers and we were making mud pies. Caleb, I laughed and pulled her into a hug. Honestly, I whispered, I can't pinpoint the exact moment. By the time I realized it, it was already too late. She rested her head on my chest, listening to my heartbeat. So who broke the contract first? She asked suddenly. What? The contract, she said, looking up, her eyes sparkling. Whoever caught feelings first broke the deal. I thought for a moment. I guess we both did. And what was the penalty for breaking the deal again? Whoever bails is a total chicken. She smiled, leaned close to my ear, and whispered, "Balk." Then she gave me a quick, happy kiss. The hot pot was still bubbling on the table. Moonlight streamed through the window. The person in my arms was real and warm. The contract sitting on a coffee table didn't matter anymore, because the truth was this was never fake. We were just two cowards, too afraid to be the first to admit it. But in the end, we both found our courage. Maya's ears turned a shade of red I had never seen before. She opened her mouth, a million questions seemingly on the tip of her tongue, but all that came out was, "You cheated." Yup, I admitted without a trace of guilt, gently wiping a lingering tear from the corner of her eye. I totally cheated. She looked at me, her eyes still glistening, but the corners of her mouth were turning up into an irrepressible smile. Finally, she just buried her face in my chest again, her shoulders shaking with muffled laughter. Caleb, you are unbelievable. Not as unbelievable as you, I said, holding her tighter. A contract you've been planning for 6 months? That's some next-level scheming, Ms. Rodriguez. She looked up, her eyes shining. So, are we like official now? What do you think? I think yes. Then we are. She giggled for another moment. Then, as if struck by a thought, she wiggled out of my arms and snatched the contract from the coffee table. This, she said, waving the papers with a mischievous grin, has to be destroyed. Can't have you holding that final interpretation clause over my head forever. I watched as she went to the kitchen, turned on the gas stove, and carefully touched a corner of the agreement to the blue flame. The paper curled, blackened, and turned to ash. She clapped her hands together as if she had just completed a sacred ritual. Done. She came back, practically skipping, and climbed right into my lap, wrapping her arms around my neck. No more contract, she said, bumping her nose against mine. So, Mr. Mitchell, ready to see where this goes? I tilted my head up and kissed her, and this time there wasn't a single shred of doubt.